What we got, Moody?
What I got right now is that slave ship, bodies, of course, the bodies are us.
Boom.
Okay? The presidents are divvying up people as property and coming to an understanding.
For sure.
The blade that I see here represents, well, of course, a cut. But then now my question is that a cut of Africans from Africa and therefore the motherland? Or is it a symbolism just representing that we're all sharing these individuals and that we're happy with that?
I like where you're going.
The man in the chair could be the platform, symbolizing the platforms that we were forced to stand up on and show our teeth and the physical structure, our physical structure, and have individuals auction us off by displaying us.
Right.
I'll stop right there.
Sure. Yeah.
So you gave us the title, The Seat at the Table of White Wealth. I see the inside of a slave ship, where the slave quarters of a slave ship as the white table. Like the white wealth is built on slavery.
Right.
Then when you look at this man in the chair, you see the TM and the measurements and all that. That is a piece of property owned by this entity that is having a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Then when I look at Abe Lincoln, I see he's influenced by African culture. And then I take the box cutter as opening up this brand new fresh box of property.
For sure. Yo, y'all got bars, bro. Alright, so let's get it.
I see the person facing that way, oblivious to what's happening. So he's unconscious about all that.
Right.
He don't know. He's at the table, but not at the table.
Right.
He's unconscious about that. What's the you'll get to it.
I would like to hear your question because I'm going to
What's
answer.
the 30? From here, it looks like 30 degrees or 30. What's that 30? Right there.
Right here?
Yeah.
It says 30 inches.
Okay.
So that's the dimension that the brother spoke about.
Possibly.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like it really is similar to what Justin was saying. The man sitting at the table, I mean, he has a seat, but at the cost of his expense, if he's brutally naked and turned away, while everybody's fully clothed and capitalizing off of what he's brought to them.
Sure.
It seems like Benjamin Franklin is holding like cotton, I believe, and it's like on the table it's showing like the chips and like say gambling the chips and like that's pretty much Americans been built off of the backs of like African Americans.
And it's timeless. It looks like it's a period piece, but that's today.
All right, back. Yep.
I think something that doesn't like resonate or like you're nice. Is that Ulysses S. Grant?
Yep.
Yeah.
So Ulysses S. Grant, he became a president, but when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. So when he's being brought and they're trying to, all other founding fathers, or you have, that's Jackson from the 20s, right? He, going back to this portrait about gun laws, right, the Second Amendment, and why was that so integral to building American wealth, was because without gun laws, this whole narrative about the table, about slaves being brought over in slave quarters from Africa, I don't know if I buy into that 100%. Just say that. Some did come from Africa, a lot did, but there's not enough slave ships to say that all did. So with that being said, some people actually had claimed that Abraham Lincoln, long story short, was mixed of different type of, not necessarily just completely white. I don't know if you were alluding to that. Because he doesn't look like the other type of whites. And then on top of that, the stuff that they're passing him they trying to get him, and this is going back to biblical, like in the Bible. Anyone that's trying to give you a drink, they don't want the best for you. So Ulysses S. Grant, which was his vice president or his general or whatever, who ended up becoming the next president, is the same one trying to give him a drink and tell him, hey, chill out. We got this. Like, we're going to win the war. He obviously don't believe that. So the other man who's over there who probably fought the war with Lincoln, or maybe that's going too far, he just knows that that's not a situation that has his best interest. So he's looking towards his consciousness, or what his consciousness can lead him to, which is clarity from all this other confusion from history and politics and what have you. That's to me.
Y'all quiet.
That's the piece.
I don't even need to. I'm gonna wait. Anybody else after him got something to say? We're gonna make these like the last two.
I mean, everything that you said has been really good. I just feel like urgency to take the blade to cut him out of this picture. I would like cut the chair, man sitting away from all of that. And I feel like that he's kind of initiating it because he's turning his back to it. Maybe that's just me being hopeful.
So my question was, like everyone says Abraham Lincoln has some sort of African influence painted towards him, but I didn't know if that was supposed to allude that he was for or against, because it's been said that Abraham Lincoln, if he didn't have to free a slave to win the Civil War, he wouldn't have.
Right.
So it's kind of like, is he just putting on this cloth because he's shown to us as this savior, but in reality, he's really not.
For sure. Alright, back. Y'all have given me a lot to work with. That was dope. Alright, so the main, I guess, like opposing figures in this joint, right? Like, this is me, first and foremost. This is me in this chair. So I wanted myself being in this chair to represent my conscious mind. Right? Everything behind me is my unconscious mind or my imagination. So you guys are absolutely right, you know what I'm saying, with all of the imagery y'all see on the table and we being considered as bargaining chips. And I guess one thing to point out is similarly, I'm not going to talk about that yet, but even if you look at the piece we talked about earlier, Kill Bill, where I like personified the dollar bill, each of these are denominations of our money. You know what I'm saying? The $5 bill, $1 bill, 10, the 20, and 100, or in the 50 as well. Feel me? So this is money at the table, and this painting came about because I was, as I often do, meditating about all the millions and billions I make. and in doing so, I was turned off at how I view the people on the money. And so I asked myself, I'm like, yo, Will, if you were to be sitting at a table of personified white wealth, like, would you be welcome there? And my spirit was immediately like, no, you would not be welcome there. And so I don't know if a lot of you had a chance to get close enough to the painting to see the dialogue between George Washington and Ulysses S. Grant. But there's like a really foul joke that came to mind when I posed that question as to whether I would be welcome or not. And so George Washington is asking, what does a nigger and a dollar bill have in common? And Ulysses is responding, you got to break the buck to get any real change out of it, right? And so what my intention is that everything that's happening over here, you know what I'm saying, is my interpretation of what these people, given their context in our history, like what or how they would reference myself, right? I have myself here being nude because just being in a vulnerable space of one, knowing that in this society I need money, but then two, not wanting to be on the same moral basis as the people who are on our money. And so I I'm gonna need a chair to kind of demonstrate a part of this. All right, so with, and I'm gonna get to the razor and stuff too, but I'm gonna start. I know some people were talking about like the dimensions and stuff that are written here, and then there's a line going across here that's 30 inches. I know you and Pete, I think you peeped that, right? All right, so, you know, as I'm creating this piece, all of the dimensions here are closely or directly tied to where you see these dotted lines and then this blank white hand right here that leads to the puppet strings, right? So, essentially, you know, as I was sitting in my chair, I definitely wanted, like, actually, I wanted to figure out how I would have to move that arm with the dimensions by it in order to reach behind me and manipulate the money, right? And so, you know what I'm saying, I put the dimensions there as how far I would have to move my hand up and then to the side, and then how far I gotta swing it in order to have my hands be inside that blank white hand that's there, right? And so ultimately, like I said, this battle between conscious and unconscious, and where I'm asserting that I can reach into my imagination, I can reach into my unconscious and manipulate anything at will. You know what I'm saying? So me having my back turned to the table is essentially me asserting that I'm not like the people at that table. I don't care to be there. You know what I'm saying? And then I always further champion the worth or the value as my artwork as a currency, and me not needing to reduce myself to try and fit into whatever means of wealth that, you know, these people represent. And so the razor is here because initially I had these like string pieces right here that are cut. Like all of this was stitched similarly to how this is. And so yeah, like it was just ultimately to show that with my conscious mind, this serving as my conscious, I can cut myself out of being tied to whatever. And so there's I've cut the stitching around my body. Each of the presidents have their throats slit. You know what I'm saying? Whereas essentially, me being able to, like I said, like I personified them in order to dehumanize them. In a sense where, like I know with what it is that I do, I touch a lot of money, I have the power to manipulate the money, though I don't have to take on the attributes or the personality of these people represented on the money. And so yeah, that's why the razor is there, is essentially like, this dude, you know, I think a couple people were talking about, you know, he's kind of like enslaved to that side of the table. This dude good, he naked as hell, but he good. You know? Yeah, like this is me in my contemplation mode. All I got is my paintbrush to create the currency that it is that I respect. The razor is here because it's attached to my finger. They dead, they just thoughts, they dead thoughts. And yeah, to speak to my man's right here, Abe Lincoln. A lot of people were looking at the t-shirt that he has on. I'm assuming as like him looking very, very much different from everybody else that's at the table. And I have heard, I think you were mentioning it as far as him maybe being mixed, you feel me, with something. And so I can definitely say that created some big difference in when I was creating this piece, and that I didn't know how to go about portraying him. I didn't feel as though I could attack him as blatantly as the other five. So that definitely was churning in my head. As far as like what he's wearing, you know, much like these other pieces where I did a lot of stitching, I had like a bag of fabrics. And the shirts was fly, but they were so cheap that every time I wore them, like they would rip. And I'm like, man, like I don't want to get rid of the shirt because it's some dope fabric. So I used it, you feel me, for his shirt. And when I went about creating this, it wasn't, like I didn't give it to him to make him stand out. It was just more so where I positioned everybody, there wasn't room to put it here because his hand is in the way. It would look awkward if I tried to stitch a profile of this shirt here, and then his shirt is covered by this cut. So it was just really just kind of like process of elimination as to who I put the shirt on. But I do like the conversation that him looking different, like aesthetically, has brought. So I hope that I touched to everybody's point.